Hi, this is Jenny Langley, author of the new Maudsley training manual. In this video, we're looking at Worksheet 2.1 from Module 2, and this exercise looks at things that might have caused the eating disorder and also what might be keeping it going. Now, Module 2 is designed to help carers to have a better understanding of the eating disorder, the effect it has on the mind and the body of their loved one, reasons why it might be so difficult for their loved one to give up. And by the end of the module, carers will have learnt to really externalise the illness and to empathise with the challenges that their loved one is facing in their battle with their eating disorder. So the first question is for carers is, do you know what causes eating disorders? And really there's no one right answer here, but the things that normally come up are maybe there's been some history in the family, not just of an eating disorder, of maybe some other mental health issues. Exam pressure quite often comes up, bullying, relationship issues. There might have been some trauma in the past that the family knows about. Going on a diet can be a trigger. So for people that have a predisposition, simply the act of going on a diet can trigger the slippery slope into an eating disorder. Worries about the future, bereavement and so on. And we know that very often eating disorders pop up at times of transition, so puberty, going to university, getting a new job, that sort of thing. Okay, so we introduced the Biopsychosocial Model, which is complex, but we just pull out a couple of things from this. So as I said before, going on a diet can be a big trigger for some people. Actually the pregnancy and the birth, so a difficult pregnancy, a difficult birth, a premature birth, can increase the likelihood that a young person will develop a mental health issue at a later stage. And there can be a whole array of other possible triggers. There's also the biological matrix in which we need to consider the genetics of the individual. So there's no one gene that causes eating disorders, but we know that there are complex mixes of genes that can predispose people to anorexia or bulimia or binge eating disorder. So with asthma, for example, most people understand that about 50% of the risk of having asthma is just genetic bad luck. You've got that mix of genes that predispose you to asthma. With mental health, I didn't think it would be anything like as high, but actually research tells us that between 50 to 80% can just be that genetic bad luck, that you've got a mix of genes that predisposes you to developing an eating disorder. The important thing for carers is that we know that families are part of the solution. Families who work together and learn these new skills can really, really help their loved one to battle the eating disorder and move forward. Okay, what areas can carers influence? Very early on in the workshops, carers are sort of quite confused about this because what they've been doing maybe hasn't been working, but they come to an acceptance that they can't change the past, and you know, they maybe can let go of that guilt, because most carers feel guilty in some way. Did I somehow cause this eating disorder? Certainly we felt like that. Some carers feel very judged by other people, you know, am I a bad parent? And just feel powerless. So obviously through the workshops, we're going to try to help the carers to gain confidence. Now we move on to the maintaining factors. So what keeps an eating disorder going? And carers can quite often identify that, yeah, my loved one really likes her eating disorder. She feels it's her friend, it's her only friend. It gives her lots of attention. So why would she really want to change? And then carers quite often come up with other ideas like, you know, well, we're going through the NHS, it's not really helping at the moment. So of course that can be really frustrating. The illness seems to be really entrenched. My loved one refuses to let go of it. And carers start to think, well, maybe sometimes the way I react isn't helping. So then the question is, who is the one person you can change? And carers will say, well, of course, myself. And that's a key part of the workshop, is to get carers to start thinking about changes that they can make for themselves. So we introduced the maintaining factors model, of which there are 4 quadrants. If we have a quick look at each of these, so the emotional style, so the eating disorder often numbs difficult emotions, and again that's seen as perceived as a big benefit for the person with the eating disorder, who maybe was feeling terribly anxious and terribly depressed and actually now feels just numb, and she likes that. And of course emotions become very difficult to regulate, and social relationships then of course become very difficult as well. And with that, lots and lots of young people with eating disorders develop lots of rituals and compulsions and sort of rigid rules and that sort of thing. Then we have the thinking style. So very often people with eating disorders are perfectionist. They have extremely high expectations of themselves. They don't deal with failure very well. They've got great attention to detail and black and white thinking. And as the eating disorder develops and goes on, you see more and more rigid rules appearing. And so ultimately it's very difficult to see the bigger picture of life, because every day is about fulfilling the rigid rules rather than looking forward to the future. Okay, then we have the concept of self. So people with eating disorders tend to have very low self-esteem. They feel that they don't deserve the care and attention they're getting. They're just trying to be smaller and insignificant. Their confidence is very low. And of course, again, this can be a huge barrier to accepting help. And that's why through the workshops we use affirmations. So looking at the positive characteristics of the young person is a really, really important part of the communication skills. And then finally, the interpersonal relationships. So the brain is very quickly affected by starvation or the chaotic eating patterns. And of course, this affects the person with the eating disorder's ability to communicate. And caregivers often get sucked in to paying a great deal of attention to the eating disorder behaviours. So certainly we did this with my son. I would be focused on nagging him to eat and nagging him to stop exercising, and forgetting that actually he was a really talented boy with a great passion for football. So our approach encourages the carers to be more self-reflective, to think about changes that they can make themselves, and to have patience, to be patient to wait for their loved one to want to make their own changes. Okay, so how might you be able to help to shift and refocus to break the grip of some of these predisposing and maintaining factors? So carers start to think, okay, I guess if I start to make some changes, it won't do any harm. Somebody might talk about family therapy. So family therapy is really difficult, but it does help you to understand that everyone needs to dance a slightly different dance. Carers who can make changes will be role modeling that change is possible. And sometimes carers will say, well, I just feel I need to take a step back because it's like I'm over caring. And maybe that would give my loved ones some space to be able to make their own decisions and start on their own road to recovery. So we have all sorts of interesting conversations. So carers can help start to think about making their own positive changes, and accept that very small changes can sometimes make a big difference. In addition, it's not just about getting their loved one to gain weight, it's about building confidence, it's about promoting flexibility, moving away from that black and white thinking. It's about emotional intelligence, communication, and social connections. So I hope you've enjoyed this video and got something out of it. I hope you can make good use of the training manual and the worksheets, and all of the worksheets and videos can be found at www.newmaudsleykcarers-kent.co.uk. Thank you.